We got breaking news to share here on Saints Now by Chat Sports. The New Orleans Saints and wide receiver Brandin Cooks, in a shocking development, have mutually agreed to part ways. We're going to break down what this means for the Saints and what they need to do moving forward here on Saints Now by Chat Sports. My name is Trizzy Trace Girouard. Thank you so much for tuning into this breaking news edition and this specialty edition of Saints Now by Chat Sports. Friendly reminder to subscribe to the channel, because anytime there's news, updates, or anything notable happening around the black and gold, we got you covered. So hit the sub button, turn on your notifications, make sure they're set to all. That way you never miss any updates or any of our awesome content. So as we know, Brandin Cooks is no longer a member of the black and gold. He is now not been traded away, but he has been cut. And we do know that there were teams interested in this player ahead of the trade deadline, and there was chatter about the Saints potentially moving off of him. However, now he will be headed to waivers. Ian Rapoport was the first one to break the news, and obviously we know that Brandin Cooks hasn't been a huge contributor to this team. Obviously we know that his snap count hasn't been through the roof, and for what it's worth, this is a decision that was made mutually. Brandin Cooks clearly unhappy with the New Orleans Saints and where they're at, and the Saints clearly unhappy with what's going on with their team. They signed him to a 2-year, $13 million contract this past offseason. Almost $8 million of that was guaranteed, and it's worth noting that there has been a little bit of a financial help given from Brandin Cooks. We'll break it down in a moment, but the Saints are in different places than expected when Brandin Cooks was signed. The plan when Brandin Cooks was signed was to roll with a veteran quarterback. Obviously, Derek Carr was the veteran quarterback that was on the roster, and then remember, he had that injury, and then all of a sudden, now we're talking about him, maybe getting on IR all of a sudden, and then he was just straight up retired because of the medical situation. But we all know that he hasn't been super productive. He has had some good moments. He's had some areas where he's bailed out this offense and helped get some first downs, but obviously both parties were okay with moving on. And for what it's worth, like I said, you do get a little bit of financial help here. Brandin Cooks had a little over $2 million in guaranteed money remaining on his deal, including $1.7 million. That was in 2026, but they renegotiated his contract down to facilitate his release. So that is some good news for the New Orleans Saints. But what does the wide receiver room look like? You ready? That's it. There's not a typo. That's the wide receiver room you currently have in New Orleans. For what it's worth, you do also have players on IR and on the practice squad that could come back and help you out. Trey Palmer is on IR, eligible to return. Kevin Austin Jr., Ronnie Bell, Dante Pettis, all three of those players are on the practice squad. But for right now, in terms of your game day roster, you have 3 players, and it's the 3 guys you see on screen. And 2 of your starting 3 wide receivers from week 1 are no longer a part of the mix, because remember, Rashid Shaheed was traded a little bit ago. Now, Chris Olave, I do think, has a big opportunity ahead. Number 12, get ready to learn 50 catches a game. That's what we should expect to see. Obviously, now that the wide receiver room is a little bit thinner, Olave is going to be the number 1 guy who I think needs to step up and be a big contributor. Obviously, he's starting to stack some good games, and he's starting to put together some good tape. But I think that there's one player all of our eyes need to go directly to. You traded away Rashid Shaheed to open up more opportunities for Devon Vele, and now this is even more of a reason that he needs to get fed. We saw against the Panthers, he had a very, very high snap count, over 80% of the offensive snaps played. That was more than any receiver on the offense. But he also didn't contribute all that much. Only 54 catches, 54 yards and 6 catches and 1 touchdown this season. Devon Vele, he's your big body target. You need to find ways to get him involved in the offense, especially in the red zone. I think that the Saints need to get creative and need to scheme up plays, and that is for Chris Olave and Devon Vele specifically. And you're also going to need to lean on players like Juwan Johnson, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, Devin Neal. I think that we're going to see a lot of changes for the New Orleans Saints in terms of their scheme, in terms of their offensive game plan, because now they have one less receiver. Again, it's not a massive contributor, but this is a big shakeup to the Saints roster. So what do you think about the Brandin Cooks news? Is it shocking? Are you mad? Are you happy? Do you really care? Is it that much of a big deal to you? Let me know what you think about the move in the comment section and share your thoughts, because I want to hear from the Who Dat Nation. We're going to talk more about players that need to step up and a player that could return and offer a little bit of help that we have yet to see. And we're going to tell you about that here in one moment. First things first, got to keep that hiney shiny with a Tushy bidet. It's the everyday luxury bidet that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and bottom health for life. Whether you're shopping for one of your homies, a dad, a brother, a roommate, or someone who lights their farts on fire, it's the gift that refuses to pick a lane. Luxurious, practical, and so easy to use and very easy to set up. You don't need to be a plumber. You don't need to be an electrician. You hook it up to the existing water line, and voila, you have enhanced your toilet time. It's so easy to use and set up. I like to say even a Falcons fan can do it. And every Tushy bidet easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing. So what do you give sports fan who have everything but more than 3 wide receivers? You get them a Tushy bidet to soothe their stress hemorrhoids. Make sure you check out Tushy bidets, and remember, a-hole is only a naughty word if you wipe. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off with your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code CHAT. Click the links in the comments and description of this video if you want to get your roommates, yourself, your homies, a loved one, a dad, a brother, anyone, an awesome holiday gift. Trust me, you will be thanking yourself, and so will your butthole. Now, wide receiver, in my opinion, is an even bigger need. I mean, going back to the wide receiver room, 3 players. You got 3 receivers in Juwan Johnson. That's pretty cool, isn't it? No, it's not. It's kind of frustrating. But, I mean, wide receiver was such a big need for this team going into this offseason. You really didn't address it all that much. You signed Brandin Cooks to a 2-year deal. You didn't really add any firepower anywhere else. And so for the Saints, receiver was a big need going into the season, and you knew in the next season, and I've said it a million times on this channel, they need to prioritize adding wide receivers in the next offseason. However, now it's an even bigger need. So Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, you better get ready to learn gumbo and beignet, my friends. Now, the receiving leaders in New Orleans, you can see it on your screen. It's actually kind of frustrating, kind of crazy to sit here and say this. Rashid Shaheed, my sweet prince, he's still number 2 in receiving yards for the black and gold. Obviously, he is now with the Seattle Seahawks, but I wanted to include him to give you that context. Outside of Chris Olave, there's not really somebody who's consistently contributing to the receiving game. We know Juwan Johnson has started to put together a nice game, he put together a nice game with Tyler Shough at the quarterback position. There's clearly some chemistry there. But Alvin Kamara being your 4th leading receiver, not necessarily the most settling thing in the whole wide world, if you ask me. But with the wide receiver room in New Orleans, you do have a player that could potentially come and help you bring a little bit extra juice and a little bit extra firepower to that squad. Remember, head back in time to when you made your waiver claims early in the season. Trey Palmer ended up in New Orleans. He's been with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for his career. Now he is back in Louisiana, but he's been on IR due to an ankle injury. He was placed on the injured reserve list on October 4th, and you can return from IR after being on that list for 4 weeks. That time has now passed, so technically Trey Palmer is eligible to return at some point soon. When that will be, I don't really know. But I can tell you Trey Palmer is a player that I have my eyes on to return hopefully soon, and hopefully can provide a little bit extra juice to the passing the department, especially since that is an area where the New Orleans Saints have been lacking. Look, at the end of the day, somebody's going to need to step up. I really don't care who it is. It could be somebody on the practice squad. It could be Chris Olave, and he earns that massive extension that we all want to see him get. It could be Trey Palmer. Shoot, I'd love to see Devon Vele be the guy. I'd love to see him make good on that investment on the top 100 pick we sent away to get him. I'd also like to see Mason Tipton get some contributions to this offense. He's a preseason prince. Let's see what he can do in the regular season. And the big thing is you got to have somebody step up to help Tyler Shough. He's going to get his third start in the National Football League against the Atlanta Falcons at home. And the Falcons are a bad football team. They're very beat up, and I think that that's a game that the New Orleans Saints should win. But the Saints need to make sure that they are doing right by Tyler Shough. And my fear is that the lack of weapons on this Saints offense could really hurt Tyler Shough's development. And what I don't want to see is Tyler Shough just look like shit, quite frankly, because he has nobody to throw the football to. Like, if Chris Olave gets hurt, knocking on wood as hard as I possibly can, then what? Then what are you going to do? I mean, the remaining schedule is so easy. Like, this is a really good opportunity to see what we got in some of these players. And it's not like you're going against some prime teams. It's not like you're going against any elite defenses, any elite squads, any groups of defensive backs that are going to cause a lot of problems. I really don't see a pass rush on this screen that's really going to strike fear into my core. We're going to learn a lot about this team down the stretch. We're going to learn whether or not they are capable of winning. We're going to learn whether or not they're able to battle through adversity. We're going to learn whether or not some of these young stars are a part of the plan moving forward, and if they're worth keeping around. As well as some of these veterans, we're going to learn, do they still got it? Are they worth keeping around next year? Are they players that we could potentially trade off in the offseason? Like, there's so many things that you're going to learn down the stretch. And I'm not saying Brandin Cooks being released changes any of that. If anything, it actually just enhances it. But it's more so of we have to learn a lot. Now you have another veteran off the roster. You have another opportunity for a young player to step up and make an impact. There's currently 2 roster spots open for the New Orleans Saints game day roster. Barry Wesley, I expect to fulfill one of those coming off of IR, and we'll learn more later this week and throughout the week as the injury reports come out. But I also think that opens up an opportunity for potentially Dante Pettis, Kevin Austin Jr., Ronnie Bell, somebody else to be elevated from the practice squad. Quite frankly, you're going to need an extra body just for the sake of being able to give some of these dudes a break. I also expect the personnel to change. I think we've seen a lot of 11 personnel. We're going to see a little bit more of that change. We're going to see different looks, different combinations, different styles of offense now that you have a very lackluster weapon group, if you will. So take a guess for me. Where will Brandin Cooks play next? A few teams come to mind. I would say the Steelers could make some sense. They're always looking for a wide receiver. Dude, I don't know. Like, this is kind of a crazy thing, and I'm going to be totally honest. I was shocked when I saw this news come in. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's, like, disappointing or it's, like, frustrating, but it's, like, what are we doing? Like, it would have been nice to at least get some sort of compensation, but we'll have to see how all that pans out in terms of, rest of the season. Now, thank you guys for tuning into today's video. My name is Trizzy Trace Girouard. This is a breaking news edition of Saints Now by Chat Sports, and that's why you subscribe. Because if anything happens around the black and gold, I got you covered. Be sure to hit the noti bell as well. Brandin Cooks and the Saints have mutually agreed to part ways, and I just gave you my take over the last about 13 minutes. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.